Sign up for Rockonteurs Extra and get exclusive access to video interviews, bonus episodes only available to subscribers, listener Q&As, and early bird access to our upcoming live shows. To find out more and to subscribe, go to rockonteurs.com.
Hello, Gary.
Hello, Guy. So, Guy, I saw you sent me a picture of your booth, your lovely new booth. And
My lovely new booth.
It's your podcast booth, isn't it?
It is my podcast. I've actually, because I've moved to the country last year, and I built myself a little studio in the garden, and I was putting the whole vocal booth in, and I started to realise, actually, how much singing is going to go on here? What do I really do these days? It's rock on touring. So I've sort of been slowly making this booth, so it's basically a podcast booth.
Hang on, you didn't get your carpentry tools out, did you?
No, I had a man.
You had a man. Very good. I'm glad to hear it, because I was quite scared when I saw it. You sent me a picture. I think you should put it up on our social media.
I'm going to put it up on the social media because I'm very, very proud of it. And I've actually managed to use, it's very A-Team. It's all stuff I had lying around, very Apollo 13. I've repurposed various lights and tables and stands.
And you must feel at home, because it's basically a padded cell.
It is a padded cell. Yeah, you're right. So, good one today. That rarest of beasts in the jungle, the singing bass player.
But the voice of rock. And he's called the voice of rock, isn't he?
He is called the voice of rock. And but the whole point is he's the voice of everything. I mean, he's got so much stuff in his box.
Yeah, because he's primarily I don't want to say heavy rock singer, but he's a rock singer. I mean, he's been in Purple and in Trapeze, but it also brings soul chops as well.
I think it's because that's where he comes from. Like so many of those people from back then, like the Cov, like others, is that he comes from, that R&B world.
Tamla Motown, in a way, yeah. From the Midlands. So he's part of that Birmingham mafia of Moody Blues and The Move.
The Move and
Robert Plant, and there's plenty, and Stevie Winwood, but Traffic, I guess. But he started off in Trapeze in the late 60s.
No, he started off in Finders Keepers.
Finders Keepers, we'll get to that. What's that track called?
Sadie the Cleaning Lady, which is an Australian hit originally.
And then he moved on to be in the Deep Purple with doing Burn, Stormbringer, and Come Taste the Band. And his contribution was fantastic. He joined with Coverdale, obviously, so there's been lots of Coverdale stories. And he's currently working with Joe Bonamassa in Black Country Communion.
Black Country Communion. But the thing I really want to get to is the KLF.
He was on the KLF record.
He was.
What was that called?
It's called What's Time Is Love, but it's not the original record. It's one they did specifically for America. And they literally just say the record is written as, "Hi, we're the KLF and we're coming to America. We're coming for you."
Wow.
It's brilliant.
Very arty.
Let's get him on.
Welcome to the Rockonteurs.
Okay, guys, I'm ready.
Well, it's a big tune for sure. I actually wrote that originally for Tina Turner.
Of course, I had gone and found Joni Mitchell down in Florida and brought her back.
I've listened to a few of them and they've been really good, man. I'm sitting in the back of the car coming into London. They're brilliant.
That caused a big problem in the band, actually. I was having too much fun.
Thank you guys for still being around, still making music, still being into it, and doing this podcast. It's fabulous.
Well, I get the feeling that us three should go for a pint. That's what I think.
I'm in a band now. It's called Roxy Music.
You know this thing about the 10,000 hours of experience?
Oh, yeah.
Get good at something. When we recorded Arnold Lane, we'd done about 50 hours.
The Rockonteurs podcast with Gary Kemp and Guy Pratt.
Keep on rocking!
Hey!
Hello!
Hey, Glenn.
Hi, Glenn. Fantastic, man. What a joy.
How are you?
We're great. How are you?
I'm okay. It's a bit hot in Europe.
Where are you?
Czech Republic.
Ah.
Nice.
I'm Gary. You know Guy.
Hi,
You've
Gary.
played with him, have you?
No, I don't think we've met, Glenn.
I live in America, but I haven't met either of you fellas. I'm a big fan.
Well, we've done lots of similar things. That I used to work with John Lord a lot. He was a very, very dear friend.
Yeah.
I played on his recording of a concerto. And there's all sorts of stuff where we're kind of, and there's one quite weird one, which I'm looking forward to getting to. But, mate,
cool.
So great to have you here.
So you're on tour with Glenn Hughes sings Deep Purple classic. What's the title?
I don't know. I'm still here, doing what I've been doing for decades, and I'm so grateful.
But you're doing the Deep Purple tracks on tour at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm doing because the Burn album was recorded 50 years ago.
Wow.
So I'm the guy that's still can do those songs. So it's my honor to do that.
Gary sent me a clip last night of a thing. It was from only a few years ago of you with Bruce Robinson, Bruce Dickens.
Yeah, that was the John Lord.
Yeah, but your falsetto. It's unbelievable that that's still there. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard.
Unbelievable.
Thank you. I'm from the north, as you know, and back in the 60s, I'm older than you two fellas, but we had a lot of cover songs and playing in the pubs 7 sets a night. The Beach Boys were very popular, and we had a harmony band. So I was always the high voice, So but I love singing falsetto.
We want to get back to that because I'd love to. There's all this finders keepers, and
that's right.
Yeah, the one thing I haven't been able to find. Did you sing on Sadie the Cleaning Lady?
I did.
Whoa!
No.
Oh,
No, I was background vocalist. Sadie the Cleaning Lady.
I tried to look that up, and it was done by someone else completely. It was a cover.
It was Johnny Farnham. John Farnham.
That's right.
As we know that We Are Words.
That's correct.
Which I played on the demo of.
Yeah. Oh, really?
That was his first hit. He was
really?
He was little Johnny Farnham. Then he was 18.
Way.
Yeah.
Australian. Yeah.
Yeah, Australian.
Wow. So, but I just wanted to finish off on that. Amazing, because I direct people to YouTube to see. I thought it was the John Lord Memorial
It's correct.
Concert.
It was.
Right? And you sing this time around.
Yes.
Obviously from the Purple album, Come Taste the Band.
Correct.
Unbelievable.
Thank you.
You are the voice of rock. But more than that, much more than that, because at times you're Stevie Wonder.
Exactly.
Yeah,
your toolkit is.
I grew up on, as all of us did, Beatles and the Stones and the Who, and then all of a sudden in 1965, I heard Tamla Motown, and of course I heard the great voices of Tamla, both men and women, and I just fell in love with Stevie. And I met Stevie a few years later, became really good friends, and
wow.
So I'm a rocker, as you know, but I'm also an R&B fanatic.
That's where you're quite similar to Coverdale, isn't it?
Yes, he's a blues. I'm an R&B.
Well, it was interesting because we've had him on a couple of times because I played for Whitesnake as well. We had,
oh my God!
But it was interesting because I was saying to him, if he hadn't got the purple shout, it's like almost like he could have been a Robert Palmer type character, and it's like you could have kind of gone anywhere you wanted.
Yeah, I love soul music, So for me, it's a crossover, a little bit of a soup. I like R&B and funk and rock,
But that happened when you joined Purple, didn't it? There was definitely a shift with you and Cov towards doing more soul and funk, and you really felt that. I mean, especially on Stormbringer.
Yeah, I joined the band and they were like straight down the middle classic rock. As you know, Machine Head was straight down the middle. And when I joined, they knew they were getting a groovy bass player that could sing, sort of the R&B stuff. So, yeah, it was an interesting combination with David and myself.
It was brilliant. Now, I want to jump on this because as a bass player, apart from being the voice of rock, your bass game is amazing. You absolutely could have just been a bass player. So how did you start on the bass? How did it start? Why the bass? How did you get so good so quick?
I've got a good story for you. I was named after Glenn Miller.
So
I was playing trombone in the school orchestra when I was 11. So, and then all of a sudden I saw the Beatles on New Young, 1963. And I said to Mum and Dad, can I get one of those guitars? So then I traded the trombone for a guitar, a sexier instrument, I may add.
Where would that have been bought? Was there a sort of rock shop up in the Midlands?
Oh, yeah, the local rock.
What was it?
Store.
Can you remember what it was?
Oh, it was a Futurama.
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
Yeah, Futurama, yeah, God, yeah.
But that was a guitar, not a bass.
Yeah, I was a guitar player for 4 years. And then as most, I don't know about you, Guy, I mean, a lot of bass players stop by playing guitar, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't.
Correct?
I didn't. I started on the bass. Yeah.
Look at you. Well, yeah, I mean, I still, play guitar. I write, obviously, on guitar. But I love any stringed instrument. I love playing guitar and bass.
Oh, right. You say every string. What about the trombone?
Well...
Do you keep your chops up?
It's been a few years, but no, I haven't had one in my mouth for a while.
So where was it you grew up, Glenn?
Cannock, Staffordshire. Cannock, right there.
Where is that in the world?
Wow.
Where is that? Is that Midlands?
It's right. It's about 17 miles north of Birmingham, but I've lived in LA for 48 years.
No, I tell you why I was just wondering, because obviously, Robert Plant was around at the same time in the Midlands, and his big band was Small Faces, and I get a feeling that might have been... Was the Small Faces in your world, given that you loved Tamla?
Yes, absolutely. Again, the British R&B, which I call the Who and the Small Faces, was a big part of my component growing up as a mid-teenager in the North, So I grew up listening to rock and soul music and what eventually we call funk music.
Right. First underground nuclear kitchen. And,
yes.
Are you one of those people who... Did you tend to be a few years younger than the people you were playing with? You're that bit younger, aren't you?
I was in Trapeze and Deep Purple. I was like, I think John was 9 years older than I, and Rishi was 7 years older than I. And and I was always the youngest, and now I'm the oldest. But I'm really grateful to still be doing what I love.
But when did you first start getting into bands? Trapeze weren't your first band. Obviously, we were talking earlier about Finders Keepers. Yeah. How did that happen? Was that a school group?
Yeah, that was just, when I was 11, 12, 13, 14, playing for the kids at school. But Finders Keepers was my first. I was getting real young in that band. I was 16 years old. And we played covers, and then we formed Trapeze and started to write our own music in 1969.
Yeah, that first Trapeze album is interesting, isn't it? Because there's obviously psychedelia in there.
Yes.
But there's prog rock as well. It's very baroque. The band and you, the gear shifts that go on in your career are quite extraordinary.
Yeah.
Which just proves your sort of diverse love of music, I guess.
Yeah.
But the context I'm talking about really with this baroque sound of that first Trapeze album is the fact it was produced by John Lodge from Moody Blues. Now, Guy and I were having a chat the other day about mediums and how music changes when the medium changes. Mm-hmm. And one of the big changes in America was FM radio. And am I right to say that Days of Future Past, the Moody Blues record, was kind of geared up as a record to promote on FM radio?
I think you're right. The Moody's was ahead of the game back then.
But it sounded like you were tapping into some of that.
Yes. I was 17 and we were following suit, if you will. We were on their label. We were just getting our own sound, and we were sort of like doing a little bit of Moody Blues vibe, progressive music with all those harmonies back then. So, and then a year later we changed to a trio and it was more groovy rock stuff.
Because, let's be honest, the singing bass player is one of the rarest big beasts in the jungle, right? And you get a lot of people, like someone like, McCartney just does my head in, the counterpoint that's happening in his head. And same with Lynott. But you did the same. It's like you were really working on your bass and your vocals at the same time. That was,
fellas, when I started playing the bass, I really wasn't concerned too much about singing. I was really learning how to play bass. And then all of a sudden, the manager of the band said, maybe Glenn could maybe sing a song, maybe, do something. And I sang a song on that first album, the one Gary's talking about, and it went down okay, Then the next album, they asked me to sing with the lead singer, and there you go.
Wow.
Because there's a fantastic footage that we found brilliant. Playing Wolverhampton, the Club Lafayette.
That's correct.
Have you seen that? It's unbelievable. It's from Colour Me Pop.
That's right.
It's got a young Emperor Roscoe presenting
That's right.
And it is superb black and white footage, and you see all the kids dancing.
Yeah. Did you notice my bass so big and I'm so tiny and skinny that Fender Jazz looks massive?
Who are the keyboard players and who was the other singer? More to the point, because there were two of you singing, wasn't there? Was that the horn player?
No, we had a lead singer and John Jones. So I was like a bass player singer, like I was with David Coverdale, like I was the kind of second singer. It worked well. I worked well with Deep Purple too. So guys, I love actually sharing vocals with other people. I love singing with other people. I love it. Girls and guys, I just love it.
Well, that's actually what Gary and I do in the band we're in. We're in Nick Mason's Source for the Secrets.
I love Nick. Say hi. He's a friend.
Well, we'll do. But, we go and we just do all the really early Floyd stuff. And it's great. And sort of Gary and I do it half and half. And it's brilliant because neither of us are actually lead singers or have been before. And it's that great thing of just not having the pressure of carrying the set.
Yeah.
That's a very different thing, isn't it?
Look, guys, I love singing. I'm so in a joyful place when I'm singing. It's everything.
In that Lafayette video, though, when you come in, I get a little bit of Stevie Marriott.
Back in then, Gary, it might have been because I was only 17. I was still finding the genre who Glenn is, Yeah, Steve was a big, I love Steve, a good friend. And yeah, for sure, you may have heard Steve Marriott there, for sure. And Steve Winwood.
Oh, of course.
The two Steves.
Because if you're talking about a sort of rock and soul crossover, then the kind of Humble Pie have got to be on your radar.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love my Humble Pie.
Yeah.
I also love Steve Winwood, a huge influence for me.
Yeah.
Well, all these bands you're mentioning, they all took R&B, didn't they? And, and mixed heavy rock with funk. I mean, that's exactly the pocket we're in. I just want to stick on that beginning early days because I read that Apple was going to sign you.
Yeah.
So who was the A&R man?
We were down in London in 1969 doing a few showcases at Ronnie Scott's. And then we met the guy's name. You probably know this.
Peter Asher?
I forget the guy's name. Mal Evans and another guy. Heads.
All right.
Derek Taylor? I'm trying to think of Beatles' names. There's not many of them.
He's not with us any longer, but I can't remember. But he was like one of the bosses there. And we went down to record at Abbey Road, and they had a new desk. All the engineers were so fucking stoned, excuse my language, they couldn't figure out how to work the desk. So we never got to record down there.
What? Really?
That's unbelievable.
So
but also, that's quite unbelievable here because the whole thing of Abbey Road is one that always thought of it as being very straight and very chaste and kind of barrows in the pocket.
No.
You say everyone's too stoned to it.
In 1969, I'm a bit older than you fellas, but 1969 was a big hash year. I never smoked hash.
Year of the hash.
Everybody else was having a go.
but so what happened? You just never made the demo, therefore never signed to Apple.
We went down there we had this one song which we recorded with the Moody's. Send Me No More Letters, it was called. A very pop song, big on Radio Caroline and Luxembourg. So yeah, we went there to record that song and we never got it done.
It's a great song, by the way. It's a great song. So this is the Birmingham connection, isn't it, really?
Correct.
With John Lodge. And what was he like to work with?
John Lodge?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was wonderful. Talk like this, real brother. He still is a good friend, a really great guy. I love the Moody Blues. For many, they took Trapeze to America. We didn't even have an album out. And we did 20 shows with them, the Forum in Los Angeles, the Carnegie Hall. And they gave us a great start.
Wow. And how was it with Trapeze? Because were Trapeze kind of on the up? Or did you kind of plateau for you to take the Purple gig? What was happening?
In England, we were doing small gigs like the Marquee, sort of normal stuff, And then the Moody's took us to America in 1970 in December, and we played arenas. And from that moment, we got our foot in the door in America. So we basically toured America a lot. And we started playing clubs, and then we moved on to bigger clubs, into small theaters, to larger theaters. And in the end, we were doing arenas.
Whoa. Sorry, I've got a bloody great moth in my booth.
Oh, dear. So Purple were watching me for about a year. They kept coming to see us play at the Marquee and the Whiskey A Go-Go in Hollywood.
Yeah. But let's not leave Trapeze right now, because there's a few moments of growth that I really love,
I do too, Gary.
Amazing band. Yeah.
My love, it's my love, my first love. You mentioned Trapeze, I get all soppy-eyed.
Because with Medusa album, the second album, you start to hear there's much more sort of funk coming in,
Yes.
but also more of what Paul Rodgers and Free.
Sure.
So I'm just trying to imagine this scene. Obviously, we've got the Birmingham Mafia, right? We've got the Midlands Mafia. We've got Muff and Stevie. We've got the Moody Blues. We've got you and Robert Plant coming up. But I'm just thinking, what was the scene you were into? What were you all listening to that was turning music into that? I'm Free is a great example of where it's going, right?
Well, not many people know this, but I was really, really close friends with Roy Woods. And when Roy put ELO together with Jeff and Bev, they asked me to join.
Wow.
Really?
Don Arden, who was managing the band, came to see me play. He came to see me in his Rolls Royce, as he did. And he got me. He got me
drove
backstage.
in it.
He got me backstage with a cigar and, would you like to join the band? I couldn't say no, could I? I was full of fear. But my mum called him a week later and said, he's not ready to join yet, John. He's not ready to join. No.
Bless your mum for standing up to Don Arden,
Yeah,
though, mate.
so
Wow, come on. Kudos to mum.
Sorry, you were asked to join Roy Wood's band or ELO? I'm sorry, slightly confused there.
Right when they put the band together, they hadn't recorded any music yet. They asked me to come and play bass and be one of the singers. Roy and Jeff were the singers, and they wanted me to be another singer who play bass. But I declined at the last hurdle.
So was Roy going to be in ELO?
Yeah, Roy,
I know they were both in The Move, obviously, but I didn't realise that they were both going to ELO. I thought ELO was the split that Jeff made. I got to catch up on my history.
Somebody brought an album for me to sign last night, and it was an ELO album. Somebody knew about that story, so I thought I'd tell you about it today because I forgot about it. But yeah, Don Arden came and he offered me this olive branch, and I was too frightened to say no, as one would. But I stayed in Trapeze and I went to America with the Moody Blues, and the rest is history.
Wow.
Right. On the follow-up, You Are the Music.
My favourite.
We're Just the Band. I mean, coast to coast.
Yeah.
What is a woman's role?
Yeah.
2 tracks that you wrote and sing.
Yeah.
Blew my mind
Thank
when I
you.
listened to those. I'd never heard them before.
Okay.
And I was shocked. I mean, it is... Coast to Coast is now one of my favourite songs
Thank you.
of all time. I mean, it was so different to anything. I mean, who wrote the song? Tell me what happened. How did that song begin? Because it's totally Stevie Wonder, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, remember now, this is 1971, and Music on My Mind. Stevie
is on fire at this point, isn't he? Yeah.
This is the time when I was really, really listening to Tamla Motown and the new Tamla, which I call Stevie the new Tamla. And I'm a major 7 and minor 9 freak.
You can hear that.
Coast to Coast has got those chords in it. So it's a very simple song, Simple songs are the best, aren't they? So it's like one of my favorites. Thank you so much for the love.
It's quite funny because what you pointed, those are real 80s chords as well, aren't they?
Well, they are. I mean,
Yes,
they are.
Yeah.
The song sort of blew me away because, I know you as a rock guy.
Sure.
You're the voice of rock, but this is utterly, soul, and then, what is a woman's voice? There was a band later on that I got into that no one seems to have ever heard of. My brother and I went to see them numerous times. They were called a band called O.
Oh, yes.
Never saw that band.
Again, it's that, because we have bands like, I guess Little Feat were around as well later on, and it was that sort of an influence, soul and soul rock mix.
But you had that, and Jess Roden and people like that. There was a lot
I
of
love
that.
Jeff.
Yeah.
He was a great singer.
Yeah.
Another Birmingham bloke.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Purple being in the whiskey?
I did. Blackmore was there. As you know, we played, there's a 3-night residency. Each night, one of them, obviously not Gillan and Glover because they were the guys leaving. But back then, I was so naive and so young. I had no idea they were checking me out, I just they loved my band and they were becoming friendly, had a couple of drinks, but they kept coming to see me play, and then I was in New York in May of 1973 and they were playing Madison Square Garden, and John invited me over, and the next morning at breakfast they asked me if I'd like to join as a bass playing singer. I'm going, well, I thought you needed a singer. Well, yeah, but Richie wants to have a bass playing singer and a lead singer do you know that they asked Paul Rodgers to join? And I basically, this is a cool story. I said, yes, I'll join the band because I wanted to sing with Paul, my friend Paul. That would have been great. But yeah, that's true.
Wow. But so Roger was definitely out at this point. So, so it wasn't like they wanted a spare bass player just in case.
Why did Roger and Ian leave? Just clear me up on that one.
Well, guys, I hope I'm not getting anybody in trouble here, but when I went into that boardroom in the Essex House in New York, when I was walking in, I know Ian Gillan was walking. He was leaving the band. I did not know Roger was leaving also. So obviously I knew they were going to ask me to join as maybe a singer. And I was quite shocked. They wanted me just to play bass and kind of a second singer. And I was like, do I really want to do that? After Trapeze, we were doing really well in America. Uh-huh. Although Purple were doing magnificent. Smoke on the Water was number one, as you know.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
But, the idea for me to, again, share the microphone with what would have been Paul Rodgers at that moment, I'm going, well, this sounds great.
Yeah.
But he had already got Bad Company together.
Wow. I love the boardroom at the Essex House. I mean, that's a pretty intimidating
it was
room to walk into.
Yeah, it was a good day.
So when did the Cov come around?
6 weeks later, I joined in early June, and we got him kind of early September-ish. Only auditioned one guy, and it was him. We heard a lot of demos from all over the place. We heard him singing "You've Lost That Loving Feeling," You never close, the really deep voice. Because I've got that high voice, he's got the low. David's got a really great lower register.
It's just talking voice.
Do you know what? When I was recording with him, and he used to do this thing of going, I'm going to save my voice for the vocal so I'll just sing it low. And so he just sort of sing it an octave lower than when he was going to do it. And then when he'd go and do the high, the actual take, and it was fantastic, but it's like, man, that sounded magnificent before,
Yeah, look, Can of Worms time. I love David's lower register. I mean, he knows this. I think a lot of people do. I think prior to the album 1987, when the octaves went up, prior to that, he was more the bluesy stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and in Purple, he was bluesy like that too, and I love that about his voice.
Well, I also think having you there was kind of gave him the freedom to keep the soul-y side of things,
I mean, when we did those records, we were at the microphone. There's one microphone. Oh, after you, no, you. Oh, after you take that line. It was so nice. It's so easy.
Because David has a nickname forever. I mean, I'm Guido. He must. What was his name for you? It couldn't have been just Glenn. Must have been the G-Man or something.
I was the G-Man, but we were called... He called me and David, we were called the Unrighteous Brothers. The Unrighteous Brothers.
That's perfect.
Just as a sidebar, why is it, do we think, that in this macho world of heavy rock, how is it men singing falsetto is the most macho? I don't, it's kind of...
You're absolutely right. It's always baffled me that.
I don't know. Again, coming from the cover band era of the Midlands in the late 60s, a lot of people were covering the Beach Boys, and I was given this high part to sing, and I've always loved singing. And I love singing harmony. I do a lot of harmonies on my records, or I do all of myself. But I just love falsetto singing if it's done appropriately.
We know that, but I think Gary's point is I remember someone once saying to me about Bruce from Iron Maiden. It's like, here's this guy, singer of the biggest band in the world, Olympic level fencer, qualified pilot, everything. But if he found out the guy from Stryper could sing half a note above him, his world would collapse.
Do you know what I think? Yeah, do you know what I think it is? I think Robert Plant was one of the first person in early doors. But I also think, and what you're saying, right, Glenn, about those Beach Boys records, but I just think it's the sheer volume. If you're turning up that guitar and bass and the drums are playing hard, there's only one place for you to be heard, and that's above everything. Yeah,
I get that. And some nights I have a go, well, last time I'm going, I think I may have sang that one too high. It can happen. I got to center myself before I start singing these days, But I love singing up there in the top register.
Do you have to warm up to that?
I do a 45-minute warm-up before the show, a sound check. I do 5 songs in the dressing room with my band, and I'm ready to go.
Brilliant. That's good. But another little thing, just talking about being in Purple, one thing from watching a lot of your solo things that's really, really poignant and nice is that it's like you always carry Tommy Bolin with you, don't you?
Of course.
Yeah, but you always honour him at every gig.
I do. Ideally, when he got the gig, I took him to my house and he stayed with me for a month. Tommy, we all know what happened to him and how he died. It was so sad. But he was a childlike, beautiful guy. And I dearly, dearly loved him and still do. And I will carry his legacy with me until the very end of time.
Let's just go back to the Burn album. Yeah. And, you know, you've got some heavyweights in there, right? You got John Lord and Richie Blackmore. How do you, as a young kid, begin the writing process on that record? And what stories do you have from that period? How did it develop?
Well, guys, do you remember there's a castle on Welsh border called Clearwell Castle in Gloucestershire that Zeppelin hired and Purple hired. Maybe Joe Cocker was down there when we were there. And a lot of people were actually going in there to pre-produce their records before they went to wherever they were going. We were always in Switzerland. But so we went down to this castle and we were actually set up in the dungeon in this castle.
So Blackmore.
Nothing says imperial rock pomp like going to a castle, does it?
We wrote 2 albums in the crypt. And of course, Blackmore used to take me down the crypt at night. With a Ouija board. With a Ouija board. He was frightened to death.
Any moments from the Ouija board did it speak to you?
Yeah, we had a few moments where he actually freaked out. Yeah, it wasn't pretty. He lost his marbles down there.
But how was the writing process? Did you feel you could flex your muscles?
Yeah, I mean, we'd start riffing and we'd start coming up with bits and pieces, and the songs just came together as a band. You know, we sort of like in the room. Back in the day, that's what people did, unless you were the Who, where Pete wrote everything. But with Zeppelin and Purple and other bands like that,
Floyd.
It was like a group consciousness. You know,
you just turn up and jam, so no one would turn up with a song. You had to put all your minor ninths and major sevenths in the box.
I didn't get to use them somewhere. Only on this time around I could get to use those, but I had to leave the minor nines and major sevens before I
on the Burn album, which obviously the Burn album is an extraordinary record. And what was that recording process? Was there a feeling of like this is gonna, because you had a lot to live up to, you know, in rock and Fireball and Machine Head. Oh man, I mean, was there a sense of fear in the camp?
As you guys, you know that you're family men, so you know that when you've got 2 new guys coming into a 5-piece band, the sense of the camaraderie, brotherhood, friendship, we'll have dinner tonight. It was like a brand new band.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt like brand new, and everybody was so happy. Blackmore was actually giggling. So, yeah, it was cool. It was great.
Not cliquey.
No, it was... Right and Burn at that in the summer of '73 was in the beautiful hot summer. It was fantastic. I remember it really well.
Was there much of a jump for you? I mean, just like on a personal level, because Deep Purple were pretty grandiose at this point, weren't they? You know, they were. I mean, there was talk of buying the Beverly Wilshire Hotel and kind of.
Yeah, I mean, they were at that time. You can Google it. The biggest rock band in the world in '73, '74, and it was great to be part of that. But there was no like a little bit of pomposity, of course, but it was a very British band. And again, we just were close as one could be.
Oh, it's not, there's nothing better than that band of brothers hitting the road.
But David had not done anything. He'd never really been on a real rock and roll stage. Well. He hadn't really recorded any music. So he was kind of brand new.
And was he living in Germany at that point?
No, he was living in Redcar. He moved to Germany in early '74.
Right.
What you begin to hear in Stormbringer. Oh, here's a little sidebar. So Stormbringer's the next album. This I like, Guy. The front cover of Stormbringer is a storm, right?
Yeah.
It's a photograph of a storm, but it's been used on 2 other covers. Did you know that, Glenn?
No.
It's the same photograph from Miles Davis's Witch's Brew.
Stop it.
and which came before. And it's the same photograph that got used in Susie and the Banshees' later album, Right Now, which I can't name, but someone who listens to this will probably remind us.
And this, Glenn, is why you want Gary on your pub quiz team.
I love it. I'll take it.
It's an old picture taken by a woman that I can't remember.
Oh, is it not a stock picture?
It was a stock picture, but it looks different on every, because
I love it.
Miles's face isn't basically on Deep Purple Stormbringer, is it?
No.
But you look at it and you'll see it. Anyway, but what I was going to ask, the question I was building up to was, it gets a bit funkier on Stormbringer.
It does.
You break the rules a bit. Is that you?
Well, okay. We didn't know during the making of Stormbringer, I wouldn't say at the castle, but when we went to Germany to start, well, actually, in the crypt on Stormbringer, Blackmore only brought in 2 songs. He brought in Stormbringer, the music, and a song called Soldier of Fortune, which was like a acoustic piece. And the rest of it, the music, was written by John Lord and myself and Ian Pace. So we had to come up with some music. And me having my influences came out on that record, So, and by the way, guys, they didn't think it was wrong. They thought it was a natural progression at the time to do that, So David and I brought our own soulful R&B influences, and
well, as the bass player, you can really move things in that direction as well.
Yeah, and again, we talk about these songs on Stormbringer. There were some groovy moments there. I thought the songs were great. Look, it's a different vibe on Stormbringer to Burn, but when Richie took his feet off the gas, we kind of changed it up a little bit.
Right. Because you sang lead on some of those tracks as well, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I sang Holy Man, and David and I do a lot of duets on that record,
And was that all quite obvious?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, David and I were very, very cool with each other about who was going to sing what. It's like, oh, no, after you take that line. Oh, no, thank you so much. It was so nice. David and I never, ever, ever one time had a problem with who should sing what,
So there was no ego sense of like David feeling like, it wasn't like this in Ian's day.
Nope, not at all.
That's great.
Brilliant.
By the way, I found what I was talking about. So a tornado near the town of Jasper, Minnesota was photographed by Lucille Handberg in 1927. It was on Miles Davis's Bitches Brew, Stormbringer, and Susie and the Banshees album Tinderbox in 1986.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's actually on sale at Sotheby's, and Gary, you've got a bid in, haven't you?
Love it.
How was the touring with the band? Was it?
Yeah.
It was good.
Is it starting to get a bit kind of messy?
Well, like we had a private jet called the Starship and a huge plane, and
that's the Zeppelin one, right?
The Zeppelin, yeah. And it was amazing. You can imagine, right? And at this time, I guess Ronnie, Dio, and Richie were tight. And, halfway through the Stormbringer tour, Richie decided he was going to bail, and he decided to leave the band and form Rainbow.
Was that? Yeah.
But what was his reason for that? Who was he not talking to you guys? Or
I think he wanted to play more kind of classical rock, kind of Bach kind of influence stuff. Wanted to go a little bit. I don't think he really enjoyed.
Yeah, that's a thing that can happen with guitarists, with super chops guitarists. They either go the jazz way, like Beck, or it's because you just get used to doing all these scales and arpeggios. You start thinking, wait, Bach.
I get a lot of questions about what happened when, the Stormbringer songs made a U-turn or whatever. When Richie didn't bring any music in, we had no choice but to write stuff in the room that was a little different. I mean, it was just different. I loved the Stormbringer album personally. I love the songs.
Was it that he wasn't happy that there wasn't really his music on it, but he wasn't really bringing any music to it?
Guy, I think he was done. He didn't tell us, but it was obviously he was done. And it wasn't a pretty ride, but we were okay.
Was there a sense of freedom? I mean, bringing Tommy in and writing, was there a sense that the teacher's not looking anymore?
Right.
Or was John the power in the band? I'm so interested where the power lies. Was it with John or was it with Richie?
Oh, to be honest with you, I got to be honest. I think Richie had really the final say. Really, that's in my opinion. But John was a force of nature, as we know, and we just love him. But the band itself, you got that Ian, John, and Richie, and you bring David and Ian, and you got two new guys, and it's not Gillan and Glover anymore. It's not that way, and hopefully people understand everything. As you know, everything changes, and you can't repeat. I'm not one to repeat, so yeah.
But I know what I mean, but I think what sort of Gary's getting at is that sort of thing of was it like there was a sort of a Blackmore and a Lord, sort of those are the two sources of power within the band. Did you feel you were being co-opted towards one or the other? Or was Blackmore just kind of backing out?
There was never really a moment where we felt that, but, obviously Richie brought a lot of music, and great. I mean, he was he'd bring a lot of stuff in from Purple 1, 2, 3. So when you took his music away, there had to be new music written, and we did that. And
how did you find Tommy Bolan? Where was he brought in? How was he brought in?
We auditioned two people. Clem Clemson was the first.
Clem from Humble Pie.
Clem Clemson, my dear friend Clem. And the week later, we brought Tommy in. We found him. He was in Malibu.
Yeah, how did you find him? What was he doing?
He was living in Malibu, and we found him. And great story. He came down, and Bowie was living at my house that day. Bowie drove me down to SIR.
Oh, hang on. Whoa. You can't just say Bowie was living
at my house when he was making Station to Station.
No way!
Yeah.
I remember. I heard about this. God, man, that must have been a little chemical relationship as well, Glenn, I'm thinking, right?
Yeah, he was at my house for a couple of months, and
were the beds ever used at all?
Oh, my God. I mean, look, he came out from New York and alone. I picked him up at the train station.
So, hang on. So you already know Bowie at this point?
Come on.
Whoa!
Yeah, we met in 1974 at the Beverly Wilshire. I was having a party one night, and he walked in. And he never left, really. I mean, he was. We were very, very, very good friends.
Oh, mate.
Yeah.
I remember this now, and I remember this from reading a Bowie biog at some point. But I didn't. I forgot it was you, Glenn.
Yeah.
So, what was he like, though? How was it? Did you watch him write? Was he writing around you? Or?
Well, do you remember, guys? In 1974, he was like the Young Americans and David Live in Philadelphia. He was into his Blue-Eyed Soul movement, remember? And Bowie, he'd seen me on the Cal Jam singing my R&B stuff. He was fascinated why this English guy with long hair and snakeskin boots would have this genuine love for R&B. So we were R&B fanatics, and we found a lot of things to talk about. Yeah.
Is this the same time you did your first solo album?
He was going to produce it. I was writing it. He went off with Iggy instead, but David was part of
I was going to say, you could have ended up with Lust for Life.
Yes. So there you go. But in that, it's 1974, 75, 76. We were very, 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 very close. And I'll never forget it. He was such a beautiful guy. Huge, very, very generous.
Did you stay in touch, Glenn?
Yeah, I mean, quite a bit. Yeah. Yeah, he was always very, very kind.
Wow. So hang on. So sorry, we've gone way off here. So you're living in Malibu with David Bowie, and Tommy Boland shows up here somehow.
David drops me off down at SIO, and I walk in, and I see a guy with green and orange and purple hair, and I walk over to this guy, Tommy Boland, and I whispered in his ear, I said, "If you don't get the gig, you're coming home with me anyway." But he did get the gig, and he came to my house, and we had a great time.
Wow.
So writing that album, Come Taste the Band, I mean, obviously that track you do with John this time around, which we spoke about at the beginning of the show, it's so, I absolutely love that track.
Thank you.
But it's not Purple.
No.
And what was the reaction from the fans?
You know, John and I were in the studio alone having a Courvoisier maybe at 3 o'clock in the morning, and John's playing the minor nines and major sevens. And I started singing this time around. I came up with the lyric and pretty much instantly. And we recorded it the next morning with Pacey. And we thought it was a cool track, you know. So, yeah, it was different to anything they'd done before. I'm glad it got used.
But as Guy said, how was the reaction from the fans?
Yeah. I think, in general, I think everybody knew the band had changed so much. So with that particular song, I think a lot of people loved it. You know, we thought it was a cool song. You know, it's one of our favorites. And yeah, look, it doesn't sound like Deep Purple, but I think it's a cool song. And John and I wrote that song. It was great.
Can I say that there's on the 35th anniversary edition of Come Taste the Band, which is remixed by Kevin Shirley.
Yes,
that version is astonishing.
Thank you.
I feel like on the Come Taste the Band version, there's a little bit of sort of like trying to hide your voice in it and not really wanting to go full on R&B soul record with it.
Yeah.
The mix, and John's synth's a bit too loud, but that remix, Kevin Shirley.
I was just working with Kevin last week. Yeah, that's...
Oh, wow, great.
Yeah.
I don't know much about Kevin Shirley.
Yeah, he's a South African fella, worked with Gimme and Robert, and he works with my friend Joe Bonamassa, of course, Black Country Communion. We've just done album number 5. So we're all very, very, very busy.
So how did it end for you with Purple?
The band, we had done an extended tour and we were in the UK. Let's just say we were frazzled, you know, sex, drugs and rock and roll, you know. It's like the climate, you know, it's a change. And it was like we were getting tired. It was not a good time for a couple of us, you know. One of us died and another guy I've been sober now I ended up drinking 31 years and unfortunately Tommy didn't go that route. And that was the end. Yeah, it was a sad look. The band had done its course.
Mm-hmm. And but after, because this is the first breakup, you go back to Trapeze.
I did. I had one more go with Trapeze, yeah.
And because what have they been doing? Have they just been soldiering on with someone? Did you have to go in and replace someone, or? They
had a couple of guys come in and take my spot, and they were doing okay. And then when Purple broke up, I went in and did Play Me Out, my solo album. In the same summer in '76, I took Trapeze back to America, and we did some arena shows, and they were great. It was fantastic.
Wow.
Did you feel a little bit like you didn't know who you were at that point? Was there ever that moment where, am I a solo artist? Am I a band guy? You know, because you did make quite a few solo records. And, you know, obviously some of them had there was sort of Robert Palmer type sort of funk and soul feel to them. You even made a Christmas record, right? So
I did. You know, Gary, that's a really good observation, because after Purple, I felt when I went back to Trapeze in '76, although it's my band, I felt I was a solo artist. As a writer, I feel all these years later, I am a solo artist, you know.
But you still have that lovely thing of being able to insert yourself into things as well. You know?
Especially with Black Country Communion. We don't do that many shows, as you know, but it's a great brotherhood. It really, with Jason Bonham, of course, and Derek Sherinian and Joe Bonamassa and myself.
Yeah. And that's much more sort of Zeppelin style, straight up rock, really.
Yeah. We're really excited about the new album. We're very, very happy with it. I'm going to sing it next week when I go home.
Ah.
So what do you mean you're going to sing? You're doing your vocals. You're recording it in the States.
Yeah, I'm going to sing some of it I've got a studio in Copenhagen, and I'll record some of it there, and I'll go back to Sunset Sound in Hollywood and do some more work there.
Fantastic. So we've left Purple. There's the solo albums, and then the 80s.
You know, I say it in my book, I don't remember the 1980s. Let's just say I was having my moment of despair over Served at the Bar, if you will, without going too much into detail. The 80s was not... I made a few albums that did well, but I don't remember, you know. I did a Black Sabbath album, but I don't remember it.
That's right. Yeah, that was like 85, wasn't it?
85, correct.
Yeah.
That was a strange album because obviously, wasn't that going to be a Tony Iommi solo record?
Correct.
That's right, yeah.
Don Arden was managing that band, and I started singing this record. And
oh, did you not have your mum to protect you anymore?
Not anymore. he was, the cigar was massive now. Yeah. But no, that was an album. It was supposed to be a Tony album, and then at the end, Warner Brothers decided we'll call it Black Sabbath. So, but I'm not a metal singer, so
you don't remember it. But did you tour with it?
Yeah, I did like 9 shows, and let's just say it didn't work out for me. I felt uncomfortable singing to young lads stuff. I'm not a metal artist, so it was a little uncomfortable for me. I'm a rocker, you know.
Yeah,
it's interesting that though, because obviously you can hear in those early days, you know, you can hear what you were doing with Trapeze and obviously what Purple were doing. You can hear the beginning of what becomes Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, etc. But there's another branch that goes off somewhere else, which you're on, which is R&B.
Yeah.
And what's the difference between what you do and what Purple did and what a metal singer does?
Well, you see, for me, again, I go back to 1965 when I was 13. I was influenced in my household. My mum and dad were R&B fans, and it was in my blood. I'm sure you've got the same story with certain kinds of genres you like, you know, and it's in your blood, and you have to release it. Nobody put a gun to my head and say, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. It came out. It just comes out of me all the time. When you hear Glenn Hughes, you'll go, you know, he's doing his soulful thing. That's what I'm a soulful singer.
Right. Yeah. But then, okay, if we're sort of skipping over the 80s, I'm sort of, because there's something I really, really, really want to talk about, which is sort of your rebirth. And it's just one of the most fantastically bombastic, tongue-in-cheek records ever made. And that's the KLF one.
Yeah.
I mean, and you in that video, man, just fantastic.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, I got a call from Bill Drummond, 1990 or 91? I know they
91 it would have been. It came out in 22.
They had the Tammy Wynette video out. Yeah. And Gimme and Bill, they were Trapeze fans. They were massive Trapeze fans. They wanted to have someone they would call the voice of rock on a song called What Time Is Love America. You know, rumor has it they were going to talk to Robert and maybe someone. And I was the first guy to go down to the studio and give it a go. So I sang that track, and after about an hour, they said, well, would you want to do a video with us? And that's when I said to myself, I got to go and get sober now, you know?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is when I had a life-changing moment where I'm going, it looks like I'm going to have a good shot here, you know?
Oh, man, so Bill and Jimmy really did you a solid there.
They didn't mention it.
Because I know and adore, I've worked with Jimmy a lot, and I adore him. He's very, very talented.
So
very talented.
I realised in December of 91, when at that time, that I may have an opportunity to look at myself and get well. So a tip of the hat to those guys. They didn't ask me to get...
Nice.
They didn't ask me.
That's so nice to hear.
Yeah, they didn't...
You look amazing in that video. I mean, you really, that's... Yeah.
It was a great video. It's a great song, you know.
What was that like? I know, because you're just in pouring rain here and burning boats. Yeah.
It was... there were really rats on that boat, and it was like it looked. It was fucking wet. Great song, you know.
Yeah, I would advise anyone who doesn't know it to go and check it out.
We were mentioning Black Country Communion and Bonamassa. Bonamassa, great collector of guitars.
Mm.
He brought Tommy's guitar home, didn't he?
He did.
Tell us about that.
He'd been looking for that guitar for 7 years. He'd been trying to get that guitar. 7 years, and he finally got it last year. He got it, and but I got a story for you. So he bought it from Tommy's ex-guitar tech, and he bought it, gave him the cash, and the guy went in the desert and buried the money. He buried the money in the desert, and a week later, he died. So the money, $175,000, is buried in the desert. So it's a true story. Buried in the desert.
God.
Which desert?
I know. I somewhere, you know.
There's got to be a map.
Yeah, I don't know where, but
we're coming to you now, Glenn. We have the drugs. We will get it out of you.
I mean,
it's somewhere in what? In the West Coast?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an amazing
Has he got
story.
Has he got family? They must be tearing their hair out.
Yeah, I met the daughter last week because we were making the album in the LA, and we spoke about this, you know. So it's a kind of a side story here that's a kind of epic story about the missing money. It sounds like drug behavior to me. Maybe he was loaded. I do not know, but he buried the money.
What was the year of the what year Les Paul is it?
It's a Les Paul, a 1960 Les Paul.
Right, so top of the range.
It's a beautiful guitar.
Talking of guitars, I got this recently, and I absolutely love it. And I've noticed you have a bass that looks exactly the same. I don't know if it's the same, which is...
Yes.
What's yours?
Describe it.
This is a Bill Nash.
Describe it for our listeners.
Guy.
It's a copy of a 57 Precision with a maple neck. It's black body with anodized scratch plate. And why I never got hip to those before, because it's the coolest looking bass in the world.
I have the same one. I got a few, actually. Bill's been very good to me.
Oh, it's Bill.
Bill Nash, yeah. I love Bill. And I
love Bill. Love him to death.
I do use my original early 60s basses on the albums, but when I travel, I take my Nash basses. They are amazing.
That's interesting because Bill basically chose this colourful. He said, no, this is what you want. And I'm wondering if he's just giving me your bass.
No, I don't know. Bill, I love Bill. Is that a B neck or C?
I'm so glad you asked me that.
It's probably a B. That's a B.
Probably a B. B. Yes. No, it's not a V. It's a
C minus if it's Guy.
C neck.
C minus, surely.
It's a C neck. The round one rather than the V one. You mean?
Yeah.
Tell us about the other project you do, the Dead Daisies.
Yeah, I did the Dead Daisies for 3 years.
With Darling.
They came in and asked me to do an album, and I did. And then I did another album. And then I have to be honest with you, I started missing my own guys, my band. And Black Country were getting back together again to make the album, number 5. And I thought it was an opportunity for me to go back to my family of brothers and play my music with my own band. And I was missing my own band with my own music. And the Dead Daisies was a nice journey into another kind of world. And it was great.
Do the Daisies, it's clearly, it has an amazing run of people go through it and it does very, very well and everything. Does it feel like a band?
Yeah, it did. I know where you're going with this guy.
I'm treading very lightly.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a band, but an unusual one. I say that with respect because...
Yeah, no, absolutely.
David Lowy, the fellow, we're obviously skirting around the issue here, he takes care of everything and he's a good guy. And he,
But his life outside the band is extraordinary. It's not just, he's this amazing aerobatics pilot. He's starting an air museum and everything. He's a, proper adventurer,
he really
frontier.
Is a beautiful human being, a kind, considerate man who loves rock and roll.
Yeah,
there aren't many people like him, fellas, that can front this huge amount of stuff that's going on. And so I tip of that to him from me and the band. I had a great time in that band, but I wanted to go back to my own world again.
Because you're always you are so consistently busy.
Well,
aren't you? You're absolute tip of the hat for that.
Do you feel like you're making up for the 80s? Is that what it is, Glenn?
Gary, I must be. But I've been sober a long time, and I've been working a great well, I can't say that, but I'm good. I've got a great wife.
I hear you, Glenn.
So I've been doing it a long time, and I got great friends around the world. I love making music. I like making brand new music. I love playing live. I love singing live.
We had Marty Wilde on, who's 84 last week.
Marty Wilde.
He was amazing. He says he writes songs every day.
Really?
And I look at you. This is your job, and you're doing it, and you've got so much vitality, and yet I can find an old footage of you from the Lafayette 1960 whatever, and it's like that's like another world.
It is.
It's been 60 years, right?
I love that footage. I know you're talking the Club Lafayette with Emperor Roscoe.
Yeah.
I love that footage. I was such a young kid. And my band was so good. That band was so good, that 5-piece band.
So good and cutting edge, like right. That's kind of as hip as anyone was being back then. And also, you're incredibly lucky to have that footage because there isn't good TV of people who aren't, the Beatles or the Stones or
No.
or who of anyone back then.
No, I am a Brit. I mean, I've lived in America most of my life, but when I look back at growing up in the North and then coming down to the mighty Smoke to make some new friends, and Apple, Moody Blues, my friendship with Keith Moon, and a few other people we know, and Bonzo. I've got some great stories in my life, and most of them, my buddies aren't here any longer. So am I the last man standing? I mean,
What do you feel that you're the most proud of?
Most proud of?
Yeah.
Well, I'm proud that I'm sober. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
I'm proud that I actually, when I got newly sober, a couple of my friends said, you're going to go on and make even greater songs, going to become a better songwriter, a better singer. I said, how can that be? But the thing is, I can sing better now because I'm not loaded, So, yeah, I just love singing and writing.
Great. Well, thanks, Glenn.
Thanks, Glenn. And long may you, mate. Long may you. You're a beacon.
Oh, I love you two fellas. I'm glad you invited me on your show. Some of my friends have been on your show, so I'm glad to be included.
It sounds like it. It sounds like they've all been your friends.
Yes.
I'd love Richie on if we could get him out of the castle.
Well, I can't get him on the blow. I have to speak to his mother-in-law. He asked me to come back and play with him 5 years ago. I didn't fancy doing what he was doing, so...
Blackmore's Night.
Isn't it sort of medieval?
Yes, he wanted me to play Dungeons and Dragons, and I didn't want to go. You can't imagine me donning the Blackadder costume,
The wimple.
Well, you got the legs for it, let's be honest.
Well, there you go.
I know, but come on, he's doing the music he loves with the person he loves, right?
I love him. I never had a falling out with him. He's a crazy, incredibly gifted young man, old man, whatever you want to call it. But he's a talented guy, and there's only one Richie Blackmore, let's be clear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's very true.
You've got some UK shows coming up.
Yes. I got 3 or 4 in July, and my proper tour is 10 shows in October. 10 shows.
And that's you just going out just as you, is it?
It's the Glenn Hughes Performs Classic Deep Purple Live.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, we'll have to come along.
At some point, I will go back to being Glenn, but right now I'm honouring the classic Deep Purple legacy songs. But at some point, I will go back to playing the solo songs again, which I miss.
Yeah. Well, there's so many.
Well, I love writing.
All right, man. Lovely to talk to you.
Glenn, it's been an absolute joy, mate. Thank you so
fellas,
much.
thank you so much, and continued success to both of you. I love you both, and I look forward to seeing you at some point this year.
Real honour.
Brilliant. Thank you so
Glenn.
much.
Thank you both.
Bye.
It's always nice when it's someone who's just kind of still full of life and love for it and, doing it.
Yeah. No cynicism about, anything he's ever done.
I don't know if we get some credit here, but because, I listened to quite a few interviews and a lot of them were very serious. There was a lightness here that was just gorgeous.
Well, I think sometimes when you're talking to journalists, you can be on the back foot a little bit, But it was also, I just got really into that Deep Purple world, which I've, even talking to the cover, I didn't really get into as much.
Yeah,
And it was just interesting, and it just makes me want to get Richie Blackmore on the show. Unfortunately, we can't have John...
Pacey.
Sadly, John has left us, which is...
Well, yes, who I still miss greatly.
What else have you got to say? We have extras, right? We have extras, is what you're going to say.
Exactly what I was going to say is please, everyone, if you enjoy it, sign up for Rockonteurs Extras, where we'll be waffling about all sorts of other stuff.
We will, and we do a little bit of extra stuff the other day, didn't we? Which I really enjoyed. We talked about Glastonbury, and we talked about mediums and mediums, not Ouija boards. Not Richie Blackmore's Ouija board.
Well, that's actually a preamble for the Richie Blackmore episode, hopefully.
Anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you to our producer, Ben from Gimme Sugar, and it's good night from me.
And good night from them.
Rockonteurs is produced by Gimme Sugar Productions for Warner Music Group UK.